because no one's done it before.
Some incredible stories, some incredible companies.
Welcome to the Silicon Slopes Live. Today we're joined by Tiffany Clayson, who is the director of the Utah Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. How are you?
I'm great, Garrett. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
And we happen to be long-time friends, worked together at a coding boot camp, and I think the world of you. And when I first heard that you got this job, I was like, oh no, because it's a fairly arduous job in a lot of ways. But then I remembered that you're way tough and you can do anything. So, so we'll just call it the DABC for now.
Perfect.
All right, what is the DABC?
It's a really complicated department and landscape. When you talk about any state and the alcohol policy landscape, I kind of refer to it as being a very dynamic department. When you look at our department, you can break it up into a couple of different sections. So we have the retail component of our business, and so that's where we're selling through our retail stores and making sure that our customers' needs are met that way. And so that's operations. And then when you look at our regulatory or compliance side of our business, that's where we are granting, overseeing the licenses for restaurants and bars to be able to serve alcohol at whatever type of establishment they are. So those are sort of how our businesses are broken down. My day pivots probably 15 or 16 times in a day. So I may start out working on a prevention issue where we're working with Parents Empowered and trying to make sure that we maintain our really phenomenal underage drinking prevention statistics. And then I may switch to a meeting where we're doing construction on a retail store, and then working on a legislative issue with our legislative leads, back to the retail, over to the license part. So it's definitely, can be arduous, can also be really fun and really fulfilling because we have the ability to really make an impact on our small businesses, our medium-sized businesses, and the economy here in the state of Utah. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were down in Provo on your way back up to Salt Lake, and you were with a pizzeria.
Yes, I was with a small business owner. He's got a pizza shop in Provo.
And they would like to sell beer or all alcohol, all spirits?
That's right. They're working on a beer license, yeah.
Cool. So that seems like pretty good customer service that the director would go down and have that type of meeting.
I would like to think so. I think in speaking to the governor and the administration and the transition team, when thinking about whether this would be a good fit in terms of a role. I would like to think I have a reputation for relationship building, for stakeholder management, for being collaborative in my management style. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about is using all of those skills and all of those relationships to bring those to the DABC. So obviously I can't meet with everybody that owns a restaurant or bar, but I can be accessible and I can listen. And so especially right now as I'm still on board and kind of assessing what our biggest needs are and where our focus needs to be, I'm finding it really valuable to meet with our small business owners and licensees to understand their challenges and how we can meet them halfway and really be a better partner to them.
Yeah. All right, so ordinarily with these types of events, we're talking to entrepreneurs or panels of product or marketing. Why are we talking to the director of the DBAC?
The DABC.
DABC.
I know, it's a bunch of
apologize.
alphabet soup. I don't blame you.
DABC.
I think the state of Utah, or Utah in general, that gets a bad rap for where things stand culturally and legislatively from a policy perspective with alcohol. What I love to tell people is Utah really is not that unique in being a control state. There are 17 other control states in America. We've got a lot that are on the East Coast. We've got a few in the Gulf Coast South. Alabama is one of them. And then we have a couple here in the Mountain West. And so that's not a unique thing. And what I love is there's really an opportunity to share with the public the benefits of being a control state. And so that obviously is from a prevention perspective and able to really maintain the good parts of Utah lifestyle. So we get to benefit here in Utah from relatively low crime, low substance abuse. We have the lowest, most of the time, the lowest, if not maybe second to lowest, underage drinking statistics in the country. And so those are all reasons why people want to move here, right, from California or from New York, because they enjoy the safety, the lifestyle, all of those things. I do think, as I mentioned, we get a bad rap sometime of having really weird alcohol laws. And there are some things, I think even in the last decade, some things that have seemed unusual or take a bit of time to get used to if you're new here, moving from another state. But frankly, I think that the legislature, our new governor, really understand that companies that are here, especially companies affiliated with Silicon Slopes in the tech industry, the startup industry, they're looking to recruit some of the best talent. And some of that best talent is nervous about coming here. So I think to the extent that as the DABC, we can work to improve that perception that people have of interacting with us, how we provide support to the small businesses that they interface and interact with, we can really move the needle in helping our tech and startup community recruit better talent from a tourism perspective, normalizing things here so that people are excited to come here. And when they come here, they can get a drink responsibly and have a really good time.
Yeah, and that's the answer right there of why we're interviewing you is, if people are honest, and they are usually here when they're at Silicon Slopes, it's, cool, great numbers, great stats, beautiful mountains, all of that. They'll usually ask about the Mormons and then the liquor laws, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't drink or keep abreast of everything, you're like, oh, is there a Zion curtain? I don't know, I can't remember.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
Yeah.
And if the perception is a little bit better on the drinking and the fun and the recreation, it might tip the scale for that person to come and work for one of these companies here, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So along those lines, for those that don't drink or don't keep abreast of policy and legislation, is there a Zion curtain still, or is that old news?
We went old news. We went from a Zion curtain to, I believe, a Zion moat. And then, so basically what that Zion moat is instead of having like the actual curtain or the barrier or obstacle that separates the dining customers from seeing the alcohol being mixed and drinks being made, you now just have a like square footage. And I should know what that distance is. But in between, so that you can't have children sitting right up next to the operation. So, which makes things a little bit easier. And as I understand it from a restaurateur's perspective, that's an easier cost to absorb than having to like do construction to build a wall and whatnot from a budget perspective, right?
Yeah. All right, old news. I'm getting caught up. So with all of these new laws and rule changes and stuff, you don't get to do what you want, right? Like you have to work with partners and the legislators. Mm-hmm. And so what is that process like? It seems like it might be a little bit of a long tail. So if you guys want to achieve something in a year or 2 years, you have to kind of plan ahead with the legislators, right?
That's right. We have to be really well organized and really have to have great relationships with the legislature. One of the things that I've been so excited to experience is coming on board in this role and people kind of, not everyone knowing who I was, getting to learn and make relationships with our legislative leads. So in the alcohol policy space, our three legislative leads are Senator Jerry Stephenson, Johnson, who is remarkable. He's really great. And then on the House side, we have Representative Tim Hawks, and we have Representative Steve Waldrop. And so obviously, while a bill runs through the entire legislature, right, they're kind of our main leads that help consolidate what needs to be done, prioritize what needs to be done, and then sort of advocate those things to the larger bodies. They work so hard on this issue to really understand the needs and work on that balance between our statutory mission to provide alcohol for those that responsibly will consume it responsibly, and then also on our prevention front, which is we want to obviously prevent and decrease substance abuse. And so they really do a good job navigating those waters. But you're correct. We are at basically the service of the legislature from that perspective. They walk into session, you'll have bills that pass that impact us as a department, either in how we have to operate or how we have to audit, and then we have to carry those things out. And so sometimes, unfortunately, I think people see us as a department as making some of these decisions that our hands are kind of tied by, when in fact it's the legislature. One of the cool things, if I can mention it, our alcohol policy leads, Representative Tim Hawks, has this really cool alcohol policy work group that he's formed, and it meets regularly, and it has all of the stakeholders that interact with alcohol policy. So everyone from restaurants or restaurant associations, hospitality, hotels, our prevention advocates, really kind of faith groups, a really diverse group of folks, and sort of flush out ideas. So before the legislative session, we started with a list of, I think, like 40 or 45 policy ideas, and sort of talk those through with the greater group and prioritize them and go ahead and weed out, like, hey guys, yes, this merits conversation, but this is not going to happen this year, so let's put it in this pile. And then, hey, we actually can probably figure this out this session. Let's put it in this pile. And I have found that really helpful because it really decreases triangulation, and you have all the stakeholders in that same conversation bouncing the pros and cons of an idea off one another, and I think it's really effective. So I'm excited about the leadership of our legislative leads, really kind of what seems to be the appetite of the legislature to stay true to our statutory mission, especially when it comes to prevention, but also seeing the benefits of having a DABC and an alcohol policy that is not overly onerous or burdensome to our business environment and tourism environment. And so that's really exciting.
Yeah, and that's the economic impact side of it, right?
Right.
At some point, you could probably monitor and figure out the impact that that's making, but it's probably down the road a little bit as far as the decisions made and how they can be tracked and monitored. So I assume there's several camps of the extreme, maybe Mothers Against Drunk Driving, mm-hmm. and then there's the folks that want it to flow free as rain,
right,
and everything in between. So I guess the answer is, if you don't like the liquor laws or if you have ideas, you talk to your representative. Mm-hmm. You don't kind of gripe to you and your team.
Well, I mean, again, kind of going back to my own career in government and public service, and really working on the outreach and engagement in the constituent services end of government, and how those things work. Yes, it's best to take those policy concerns, complaints, suggestions to the legislature. What I do want to do at the DABC is find out how to be a better partner in receiving those concerns and criticisms, so that we can help carry that information again to the legislature and to our legislative leads, so that they're making sure they're getting the information sort of from all sources. And so that's one thing I'm actually going to be doing next month, Garrett, is going on a statewide tour. I think this might be the first time it's been done quite in this way, but a statewide tour with some of our management team to visit all of our assets across the state, hearing from our employees, having our employees hear from us, but then also having listening sessions with the community. So like roundtables with chambers of commerce, with business owners, restaurateurs, bars, to get their feedback and to hear from them. So again, they have another avenue to have those comments, criticisms, concern sort of collected and taken to the powers that be who are making these decisions. So I'm really excited about being able to get that type of feedback and direction.
Yeah, and as far as directors of DABCs go, I think you have a fun job, right? Because you're gonna San Juan might be different than downtown Salt Lake, and Daggett County might be different, right? But one of the things I've always been impressed with you is you can build consensus, and you're kind of a chameleon. You can talk to a lot of people in a lot of different ways, but I imagine that it's a big chasm between maybe rural Utah and maybe downtown Salt Lake. What's the happy medium for you guys on that one?
I think it's meeting our customer or meeting the public where they are. As many people know, the governor has a rural Utah initiative, and really making sure that as departments, we're not siloed and sitting in Salt Lake City in our headquarters near downtown or wherever you are, and making sure that we're paying attention to all parts of the states and all the various needs of our communities. So you're right. What I'll probably encounter in the feedback that I'll get in Moab, which is rural Utah, but with quite frankly, a very international feel. Last time I was in Moab, I think I sat down for a lunch and had 7 languages spoken from the time I got there for lunch to the time that I left. It's really cool. And then the type of conversations I'll hear up in Logan when I'm in that part of the state, or Price when I go to Carbon County. All of those things, there will be similarities. Small business owners who have tight margins, they have workforce challenges trying to bring people on and keep their businesses staffed and running. And then you'll have things that are vastly different with their communities, concerns their communities may have on various issues. So I really don't have any expectations other than meeting them where they are and trying to understand their perspective, their set of challenges or circumstances where they are, and then getting that feedback to the right people, or looking at it in a way with our management team where we can figure out how to operationally make changes to the best we can, make those changes and adjustments to help make them successful.
Yeah. And so driving up and down I-15, there was some billboards for Budweiser, and they were lobbying to be the official beer of Utah, and I think they got it. Were you guys involved in that, or is this just like PR and
I wish
marketing?
to some extent we could take credit for that really clever and sort of cheeky ad campaign, but I can't. We had nothing to do with with that ad campaign. I think it's incredibly clever. It fits Utah from a number of perspectives, and I think they're seeing a lot of success from it from a sales perspective. So good on them.
Yeah. So that's just in their minds that they're the official beer of Utah.
Absolutely.
Oh.
I'm sure our local folks, our small brewers and medium-sized brewers would love to give them a run for their money or debate them on that, right? But
Right.
yes, they're seeing that. I think it's the Red, White, and Blue campaign. But yeah, to be fair, from a marketing perspective, it's really clever.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit beforehand on some of the challenges you guys face operationally, because there is an extent of entrepreneurship with what you guys do. You've got supply chain issues and distribution and customer service. What's your aim and goal based on some of the challenges you guys have had with supply chain to improve those operations and then ultimately customer service over the next couple of years?
I think for many different industries and businesses, this year past will be such a unique year that you really can't base anything off, right? Like can't forecast from. It just be such a weird outlier for so many people because of the pandemic. We have indeed we're still seeing growth, but our growth has slowed down from being at about 4.4 to 4.6 year-on-year growth to being down to about 1%. But I'm while in year 2, 3, and 4, I don't want to be at 1% growth, I think that is great news for us in a pandemic because, as you alluded to, we have had significant supply chain issues. So aluminum is an issue, both from a tariff perspective and a supply issue. Glass has been hard to get. Cork has been hard to get. All of these materials that impact our supply chain, because it's one thing to have the wine or to have the beer, but if you don't have a receptacle to put it in, like what good is it, right? So when you look at our European manufacturers and vendors, in America, we had that nationally, one hard lockdown for 2 weeks. And then, of course, every state kind of did its own thing. In Europe, France, and in Italy, they've had multiple extreme 5 to 6 week shutdowns at a time. And when that happens, nothing is moving. Like wine's not moving, champagne is not moving. So we've experienced a lot of supply chain issues related to that. Also, our retail stores, we've done a pretty good job. And if I could just give a plug for a minute to pat our employees on the back, they are essential workers and they have worked so hard at showing up and being available every day to make sure that point of service does not fail. And I'm really proud of them. But we've had obviously workers that have been exposed or have COVID, and we've had to shut down stores, clean stores, and do that whole thing. So all of those things have impacted our sales. When I look at what I'd like to do at the DABC, and one day when I'm not in this role, when I look back, what do we want to have achieved and what do we want to have done for the state of Utah and for the governor? I want to be known for having a department that has innovated. And I think that's a criticism that coming into this role, I heard quite a lot from legislators of please just innovate, do some new things, try some new things. And so we're definitely working on that. One of my big priorities right now is to work on our IT infrastructure. We have a lot of paper-based applications, and in fact, we're very paper-based at the DABC, and that's not good for us internally from a efficiency perspective. It's also horrible for the end user, our customer. So I'd like to see us innovate in ways where we can innovate, and then I'd like to see us just improve customer service that's more business-centric, that's more economic development-minded, so that we can really make an impact on these little microeconomies that are our small businesses, our restaurants, our bars. One of the things I think that'll be a big win for me is when I call people and they're not scared. So I have to be honest, even just this week, I made a phone call to a local, I won't say who they are, obviously, but a stakeholder. And when they picked up the phone, they go, "Oh no, what happened? What did we do?" That should never be the response that I get. And I wasn't calling to scold them or to notify them of some mistake they made or fine they were going to have to pay. I really just was calling to check in and see what was going on. And so I think for me that's really important to change that culture where, again, we have to be true to our regulatory mission. We have to be true to making sure that we are looking out for public safety for our citizens in that respect. But that doesn't mean we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can also be business-centric and support our small businesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't know the numbers on this, but a percentage of the taxes on liquor goes back into other programs. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. In fact, we do a lot of good with what we do. So I always talk a lot of times about that at the DABC, we're hard at work for consumers and non-consumers. So whether you imbibe or partake of alcohol products or not, we're still working for you. So the revenue that we generate, and we generate just a little over this last fiscal year, over $500 million, goes back to some incredible funds. So first, we have Parents Empowered, which is our underage drinking prevention program, which is great. They do a lot of good work. We have the school lunch program, so it goes to help fund school lunches for kids all over the state of Utah. We also fund law enforcement and SBI, who again, they're sort of that law enforcement arm protecting the public when it, from a public safety perspective perspective related to alcohol. And then we have all of this money that goes back to the general fund, and that money is used for commendable projects, potentially transportation projects, education, human services. So again, I really see it as an amazing mission to carry out and to provide this service in a responsible way, because the revenue that we collect and generate, it does so much good for the public. I'm really proud of that work, and I really want our employees to feel proud of that work too.
Yeah, I like the way you frame that. Even if you are anti-alcohol and you don't like it at all, you're still going to benefit.
Yeah.
And the alternative is what, the Volstead Act and prohibition, and that didn't work very well.
It didn't. In fact, the control state movement, so these currently 17 states that are our control states, came about as prohibition ended. So yeah, we obviously read a history book. That was a contentious time, and it really just it was a breeding ground for a lot of illegal bootlegging and activity, organized crime. So really glad, obviously, not to be in that situation anymore. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, maybe a little bit of a fun question, and I don't have all the details, but I think it's a whiskey, Pappy Van Winkle's.
Yes.
And
which is by the Sazerac family. For any of you that don't know, I'm originally from Louisiana native, and they have a Louisiana connection through Metairie, from Metairie, Louisiana. So love to talk all things Pappy Van Winkle. So.
And it is a whiskey, right?
Whiskey bourbon.
Whiskey bourbon. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, it's not produced in large quantities, right?
Yeah, so they really kind of control sort of that volume or that amount, so it becomes what's known as like a high demand or rare product. One of the cool things about Utah, so for all of the negative or the criticism you can get, you can actually, this is one of the least expensive states to get a bottle of Pappy's, if you can get a bottle of Pappy's, but they release it in batches. So, they release it in the states around the same time, about fall every year. And every state gets sort of the same, well, I don't want to say they get the same amount, but they get their limited amount. And the way Utah has decided to distribute that is to do not a lottery, but a drawing. And so people can put their name on a list or in a hat, and we do a drawing. And so some people in states pay up to like $1,000 or more for a bottle of Pappy's. But if you're lucky and you're the winner of said drawing, you may be able to get it for significantly lower, like $100 or so. So yes, it's very interesting, the folks that actually start reaching out around the Pappy drawing time, and they get really excited, they're paying attention, they're calling all the time to make sure they have the dates down, so they can make sure they're in the loop.
And yeah, and it wasn't really designed to be a high-end, expensive whiskey bourbon to begin with, but for some reason it's got this cult following, and I guess each state has a different way of doing it, lotteries or just get lucky. But you can also, well, I don't know if it's legal or not, but you can resell that bottle to somebody that didn't win for a big markup, right?
I didn't hear that. Not in the state of Utah, we can't. No.
Probably any state, but
yes.
Theoretically it could happen. Anyways, fun story about that. And
yeah.
I assume he's not alive anymore, but.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think it's, to be honest, it's a credit to sort of their business model and how they've decided to do that with the limited production. And from a marketing perspective, it's genius, right? Everyone loves to kind of buy into a product that has that appeal and that need to kind of go on a hunt, right, for it. So, it puts it in high demand. It's a really fun product to talk about.
Yeah, they figured out like viral marketing without
absolutely
even trying, really. A couple more questions. So if a retail liquor store pops up in a neighborhood, what was the reason behind that?
So that's a great question. It's a question we get all the time. We, in the last couple of years, have started doing a study, and we do that study, I believe, every other year, so like on a 2-year cycle, where Zions Bank has done the study for us in the past, where they pull a lot of market data related to population trends all over the state, and then they make recommendations on how to prioritize new stores and how to site them, as well as how to prioritize refurbing our current stores. And so we really use that because we want to, again, be data-driven. We want to provide as much equity and fairness in every decision that we make. And we want to make sure that there's equity geographically, right? So that, like, of course, the bulk of the population is here, so it's easy to justify why we would need lots more stores here in the valley or on the front, Wasatch Front. But that doesn't mean that, like, Cedar City doesn't need a new store or Logan doesn't need a new store. So that's how we sort of prioritize that. And then the commission, actually, that's a whole other function we haven't talked about, but we have the department that runs and has all of these responsibilities and duties. And then we have the commission, which is a 7-member volunteer body who interacts in the alcohol policy space as well. But they basically make the decision on what store to pick and helping to cite that store. And then ultimately the legislature is involved as well because we have to seek funding for these things. So kind of all three of those, our department, the commission, the legislature, is involved in that process. So we have that study, our most recent study, actually on the website. So for anyone that's interested, if there's a store prioritized or coming to your area, you can definitely either call us at the DABC or check out the website and be able to find out there. We've got some really cool stores coming in the Salt Lake City area. We've got a new downtown store, a new Sugar House store, a new Foothill store, and our next store to open will be Taylorsville in June. And to kind of plant maybe some little verbal Easter eggs, operationally we're going to have some kind of new and exciting features in that store, so definitely come check it out if you're interested.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, this has been really insightful, and thank you for taking the time. So for those that are building companies in Utah and recruitment pops up and there's alcohol and liquor laws associated with it, I feel like you know how to leverage the DABC and the legislature to help in your recruitment and growing your company. So thank you so much, Tiffany. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Garrett. Thanks, Silicon Slopes.